I don't even know where to begin with this full moon eclipse on November 8th. Oh man. I really want to go for it in this video. I'd love to just let it fly. The insights, the feels, the suggestions for how we can traverse what feels and looks like one of the wildest, I'm going to use this word and I use it hesitantly, but I'm going to say it, most dangerous eclipses that I've seen. When I'll just get personal for a moment, because for me, astrology is very much embodying it, embodying the archetypes, embodying the energy of the astrology. And so when I feel into November 8th, it brings a sick feeling to me. It brings a heaviness in my heart, and a sick, nauseous kind of a feeling around this eclipse. And I'm not saying that this has to be bad or horrific or will unfold into war. I know what a lot of the astrologers are saying out there, nuclear war, and, you know, this is the end of the world, and, you know, be prepared. And that's not at all what I want to offer in this video. I want to offer inspiration, and I want to offer how we can grace with as much grace as we can, as much love and awareness, and growth. So for me, eclipse seasons are enormous potential for soul growth, for soul unfolding, for soul truth, for soul purpose, for soul path. Eclipses, and this particular eclipse is a North Node eclipse. So it's lighting up our future destiny. So your personal true north, your personal path forward, from a place of really asking us, this is a big theme for this one, really asking us to shed the ego. Yeah. To shed our previous ways of finding fulfillment in our lives. Things that were fulfilling to us or were acceptable even in our lives may no longer feel like they're at all fulfilling or that they're even acceptable over this eclipse season. So it's a big truth bomber. So full moons, they now illuminate. So if you watched part 1, that's where I talked about the new moon. And really, we're still in this phase of things are hidden. Full moons start to reveal. Eclipses end up revealing, but go through a very hidden phase where we can't see. So if you've been feeling, or even now, sometimes the revelation doesn't happen until after this November 8th full moon. We'll continue to see the revelations. Eclipses, the energy lasts for about 6 months. We're very much in the window 2 weeks after this November 8th. So just know it's not a one and done kind of a thing. We're very much in the cooker. So this eclipse is also a very intensified pressure cooker. Internal pressures can also be feeling external pressures. So I think the thing that I want to share here is self-care is going to be incredibly important. Discernment, incredibly important. Really thinking about what we are allowing into our space, what we are allowing into our mind, what we are allowing into our energy body, what we are allowing into our psychic space. Psychic hygiene, very important, right? Like cleansing aura practices. For those of you doing the eclipse workshop, I do about, I don't know, half a dozen of these sort of psychic hygiene practices that are really, really good for eclipse season. If you're interested in that, you'll find links below for it. It's open until the 8th. But let me feel into where we can go in this conversation next that will serve. As intense as this is going to get, as tumultuous or as challenging or whatever the outside world looks like, there is this beautiful, grace-filled opportunity to evolve in it. Eclipses are very much about waking up. They're about evolution. They're very spiritual in nature. They're soul-based. So soul-based is innately spiritual in nature, but it's asking North Node in Taurus. That's where this full moon is landing. North Node in Taurus with Uranus on the eclipse. We'll talk about that in a minute. That's the wild card zinger. But it's really asking us to embody, to bring it in, to not just think about evolution or let spiritual awakening be outside of ourselves, but to like bring it in and down into like our lower chakras even. It's asking us to evolve and to enlighten. So bringing light to darker aspects of self, that's a lot about eclipses, is really bringing more and more consciousness into some of the unconscious places. Enlightenment, bringing light to the hidden, bringing light to the dark, bringing light to the shadow. Embodying, bringing soul, spiritual growth, so it's not outside of self, it's legit, it's like soul retrieval. It's inviting more and more and more and more enlightened self, evolved self into deeper and deeper and deeper realms. So let me say that again. This eclipse is now asking us to bring our more enlightened self, which for most of the world, enlightenment happens in the heart up, or it happens outside of self, or it happens in our spiritual energetic spaces, but it doesn't necessarily happen in like base chakra safety survival. That's where this is asking us to go, is literally bringing consciousness and evolution to base chakra safety survival. What does this mean? Like, what is this going to kick up? It's going to kick up it's going to kick up the very ground of our, how do I want to say it? I don't want to say ground of being, because I've used that in many other conversations as like the depths of the feminine, so I don't want to use that, but the foundation of our lives, the foundation of our identity. Identity is going to be challenged for many of us. Mars is retrograde in Gemini, getting worked over by Neptune, who's spiritual god, shaman, medicine man, right? That's like an initiation to the ego. It's like literally the part of you that really is a doer, that makes things happen, that takes action in the world, that is very identified with personality, with our egoical selves, is being initiated or being like taken out into the woods and put in and taken to the fire to be initiated and to evolve into a higher form of self, a more sacred. So it's like the warrior is being asked to become a sacred warrior, not just a warrior for egoical desires, but a warrior that is aligned with the highest good of the all of everything, a heart-aligned warrior, a soul-aligned warrior, a sacred warrior. That's a really tough evolution. That's not easy. Now remember, the whole world is in this. So that's a space where, this is why when I say it's very dangerous, it's a space where some people will not be happy about this ask to be initiated into higher states of warrior, will cling on to the egoical identity, will be clinging on to, no, this is where I source my power from. This is what my safety and security is these old unevolved forms. So just that can show up in many, many, many ways and will in our world. And having this conversation allows us to really be real. I'm going to give you some tangible practices around this. Again, there's more practices in that eclipse workshop. It's like a survival guide. I mean, there's probably a dozen practices that are really, 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 really supportive, really a lot of self-care, a lot of psychic hygiene, a lot of like staying in your lane, coming back to what's in this for you, not getting swept away in big tidal waves of collective consciousness, not getting swept away in a tidal wave of collective fear because of what's unfolding in the world. So just know that if you're like, I need a lifeline, that's available and can very, very, very much help. All of those practices and just that journey in itself can help a lot. So the other aspect I want to share around this masculine piece, this is this is danger zone. This is danger zone. This will be a lot of projections, a lot of blaming, a lot of going into old ways, holding on to the old structures, old power dynamics. This is that Saturn-Uranus final square that they're doing, and it's lit up by this eclipse. Uranus is on the moon on this eclipse, and they square Saturn. So Saturn is squaring both the sun and the moon. It's this last standoff, and it's going to kick up. Let me feel for this. There's a very, very high evolved expression of Saturn. It's Gandalf. It's wise man. It's mastery. But it's mastery through initiation, mastery through experience, mastery through the maturation process. The other side of that coin, so if that's wisdom Saturn, right? Wisdom Saturn, the other side of the coin is really digging in to this is the way things have been, and this is where I have sourced my security from. Even if it's not necessarily true given the current dynamics of things, how our consciousness has evolved, how our world has evolved, how our values have evolved, how priorities have realigned themselves. There's this like old stuckness that can happen where we really dig into old forms because they used to work and we don't necessarily know what's better than yet. We haven't tested, we don't have a tried and true path. We only have this old school, that's a Saturn, old school way of doing something, and it used to work, and so we go back to it, even if it now no longer works. And so watching out for that in your life, really, this is a moment of transformation that I've never seen. This amount of intensity to evolve. I've been using this phrase, evolve or die. This intensity to enlighten, to evolve, to really let go, and think about this in your own life, to really let things, this is very unstable. Unstable energy, unstable moments are great for spiritual awakening. They are great for shaking things up. They are great for creating new pathways and new patterns. They are great for that. But unstable energy, and this is highly, highly charged and highly, highly unstable. Unstable energy is not great for our physicality. It is not great for our ego structure. But that's what this eclipse is about. It's about breaking down our ego structure. If you hear people talk about dark night of the soul or spiritual awakenings, and when you go through these moments of identity crisis, or you don't know who you are, or oh my gosh, you just had this really beautiful awakening, but now like things feel very unstable, right? You feel very, that's what we're going through. That's the energy of this moment, it's very unstable, and the instability and the chaos, right? New gets created out of chaos. Like There's a whole ton of science behind out of chaos comes the creation. Like we create out of chaos, and that's what we're walking into. We also can only create and reconstruct after deconstruct. And this is kind of the final phase of deconstruction. It's like we've been holding on. So I feel, I'll give you some random feels. I feel like we've been holding on to old structures, like barely. They don't work. Like we know financial systems don't work. We know political systems don't work. We know a lot of governments don't work. We know a lot of international policies don't work. We know a lot of these things don't work, but we're still, it's like that final phase of just still not allowing the full deconstruction to happen, the full crumbling to happen, the full, the full earthquake. That's like Uranus and Taurus is like earthquake. It's literally the full earthquake to let the whole building fall, to let the scaffolding fall. And you can feel that, like your internal scaffolding. Maybe it's showing up in your family life. It'll show up in different areas of our lives. I'm not saying that I'm not doing this to gloom and doom, right? I'm like, underneath all of this is fucking glorious. And it's perfect. And it's designed perfectly, and it's necessary for our enlightenment. Again, coming back to this, it's a north node in Taurus, south node in Scorpio. This is a north node, full moon eclipse conjunct Uranus. It's the revolutionary, it's the new, and it's embodying it. We like talking about it. We like thinking about it. We like when the revolutionary and the new, and we like when the enlightenment is outside of our bodies. We don't like it necessarily when it's in my belly. We don't like it when it's happening in our bones. That's what's going on. It's happening. It's like our whole internal scaffolding in our body. And I'm using body as an example, but in the physical structures of our lives, our relationships, our jobs, our teams, our careers, are all of it, like the very, very physical structures. We struggle. I put this post up and it was anchor into something that supports change. Like this is, and to really, kind of feel into that as how can I support myself to get comfortable in the uncomfort of change. Change is always uncomfortable. And this is a moment of deep transformation, deep change. I'm filming this on the 1st of November, so I don't even know what's going to happen as we get closer and closer and closer and closer to the 8th. Never mind what's coming after the 8th. But to be very, like, a lot of self-care, I'm going to give you some practices here. So some really good practices for the eclipse. One, do the eclipse workshop. Get all of those practices. That's the best thing that I can recommend. I mean, there's a reason why we came out with it. We made it at a price point of $27. I've never offered a product for $27. Never, not ever in my life have I offered a product for $27, right? But this to me felt like this is essential, and this is just what is true for me and how I can show up in this moment, how I can stay. Eclipses, they're all about staying on your true path, staying true to self, your soul truth, your true north, right? It's north node, south node being lit up. Soul path, not ego path, soul path. And it's calling us home. It's calling us back where we've come out of alignment to our own deep intuitions, to our own deep gut feels. Feel into that and just get real about it. I mean, it's going to show up in our faces whether we give ourselves the space to get real about it or not. One way we can journey through this with a lot more ease and grace is to confess the shit out of everything, at least to ourselves, right? You don't need to confess like officially to someone or, an authority for whatever. It has nothing to do with religion. It's just about being so honest. That will really, really help so eclipse doesn't have to activate events that will smack you in the face to show you where you're out of alignment. It's about misalignment where, right? And we're human, so it's not about beating self up. It's not about, that's gonna make it worse. It's about being extraordinarily compassionate, extraordinarily loving, and extraordinarily truthful with ourselves of, you know what? I had a deep gut feel not to get in this relationship, but I did. And now it's gotten really painful. I had a deep gut feel to change this thing 3 months ago, but I didn't do it. Now it's gonna get loud. I had a deep gut feel not to start this company or whatever. And now it's gotten loud. Now it's in my face. So to really be so okay with the rub, like where are things not jiving? Where are they rubbing? Now here's tip number 2. This is gonna be big. This is gonna be big. This is a time of massive projections. Massive projections is why I'm talking about psychic hygiene and doing all of those practices, right? To really keep our space clear, to really allow energy to move through us. Again, Eclipse Workshop's great for this. You got a billion practices in there, but you want to let the energy move through. You want to keep your space. You want to do psychic hygiene. You want to do deep ways of flushing. It's a time of like flushing and releasing. Like think about how can you release energy out of your body? How can you release emotions? Emotional releasing is really important. If you need to cry, cry. If you need to rage, find a safe way to rage, right? Mattress and like a Nerf bat or something like that, right? Or pillows and a mattress and you just pound it. Don't hurt yourself, don't hurt anyone else, but find ways, dance wildly, stomp, dance wildly, make love wildly. This is South Node in Scorpio, Taurus, embodied, right? Release. If making love is a release, if orgasm is a release, if raging it out is a release, release. If dancing is a release, release, like move energy. However you're called to move energy, move it, move it, move it, move it, move it. Scorpio is about, which is South Node Scorpio, it's about moving. And here's another thing. South Node Scorpio, the sun in this eclipse, the sun is conjunct Mercury. Move thoughts, move thoughts. So Scorpio is about moving stagnant energy. With Mercury in the mix, it's going to want to flush out old thoughts, old thought patterns, old ways of thinking, old stagnant things in the mind. So maybe it's like free flow journaling. I know for me, every morning I walk. Like that's moving a lot of energy. I walk and I just let my thoughts go wild. They go wild. And I know that it's not about the thought. It's not about clinging on to any thought. It's not about judging any thought. It's not about, oh, Sabrina, that's not a good thought. It's literally a purging. That's it. How can you purge? How can you release? Finding those spaces is really important. Finding those practices is really important. Again, there's a lot more in that Eclipse workshop if you're looking for more ways to do that. Projections. Let's go back to this. So we've got to really, really watch the projections. This is why I'm saying it's rather dangerous, right? Projections are, you've done this to me. This is going to happen on a global scale, right? It's your fault. You're causing this. You're doing this. It's going to be a lot of outside of self. We don't want to own it. We don't want to see it. But when we can own it and we can see it, it will take us further. It's trying to show us something. So rather than playing victim and it's all happening to me, it's happening for me. I'm being triggered so that I can see something. I go deeper. We do this in Eclipse Workshop, Bones Workshop, right? Like there's a lot of different places that we can do this in, but we go deeper and we work at a soul place where we then have choice. So up here, when we're projecting, we have no power. It's being done to me. I have no choice. I have no way to move. I have nothing I can do. But when I go, it's being done for me. What is my choice? What's happening here? That's when I start to see the gems and I start to see what I can evolve through, what I can release, what kind of mental patterns I can let go of. So that this whole thing is about so that I can move into my potentials. I mean, it's glorious. I know I'm talking like, this is so dangerous. It's so intense. It's so, but it's all perfectly laid out, delivered on a silver platter so that we can finally start to go into our potentials, our soul potentials, our embodied spiritual potentials, our enlightenment in a body, not disassociated, but living from a place of soul-aligned, heart-aligned place. It's stunning. So watching projections, watching the projections coming at you. For those of you, I know I have a lot of sensitives in my community. I know there's a lot of sensitives, a lot of empaths in ReWilding. Really, really watching that pattern of taking on what's not yours. Taking on what's not yours. If you're like a light worker, a lighthouse in the world, find places to plug in where you can recharge into your light. Living Close to the Bone, our monthly membership, the ReWilding Circle membership, that is a way to plug in. That was this November 1st practice. It's in the members area. You can join that. Do the Eclipse Workshop. You get a 7-day trial of that thing. It pops up as soon as you say, yeah, I'm going to do the Eclipse Workshop. I would love to see what that practice is in bones. Go do it, right? But you get to plug back in. So watching that, and if you don't do that, that's fine. If you're not called to come and work with me, but figuring out and getting really real, what supports do you need? What supports do you need to stay a beacon of light, to stay in your own journey, right? It's not that we're not serving, it's not that we're not engaging, it's not that we're not embodied and we're not connected. We're all of those things, but it's getting really, really real. And this is something that I've been using in my own practice lately is I need to stay in my lane, because there is shit flying and it's gonna get bigger and more, right? It's flying. And so just really like, does this serve? And if it does, yeah, I will engage. If that's true, if that is part of my lane, I'm not being an asshole. So know this, like, it's not about being selfish. It's about being true to self, being authentic to self. And we're gonna maybe have to take more time, more pauses, more practice, more meditation, more solo time, more internal time, unplugging from the external world, from the people in our lives, so that we can get clear and we can come back to self and go, does this serve? Because it's gonna be coming at us from all angles if it's not already. Right? So that's something to watch out for. Oh gosh, there's just so much. Explaining this eclipse is literally like trying to fit the ocean into my drink bottle. That's how this feels to me. Let me leave you on this practice. And again, if you want more, I invite you to go do that eclipse workshop. I really invite you to work with the energy, because there's such a potency here. There's such a potential, and there's so many doors being open where we can really shed some old stuff, where we can really deepen into our own uniqueness and our own fullness and our own like soul power, right? Soul, like authentic soul power. So I'll leave us with this one. I've talked a lot about the masculine, right? In the form of Saturn, in the form of Mars, like really getting worked over, like really like getting initiated to move into more evolved states. It's full on. The goddess, the feminine, is in some really extraordinary places. I'm not talking Venus, I'm not talking the moon, right? I'm talking more of the asteroids. Some of the goddess asteroids are in really stunning places. Hygeia is one of them. So Hygeia, Kundalini goddess of miraculous healing. The energy of Sophia it's like divine feminine wisdom being spoken to you on the wind, right? And it's literally everywhere. And so that, for those of you who work with feminine archetypes or you work with goddess archetypes, really calling in the high wisdom ones, right? Dark goddess, I wouldn't go there. Kali is kind of getting close to this, to the moon. She's in a wide conjunction, so she's kind of a little bit activated, but like there's enough that's already stirred up. Like we do not necessarily need the dark goddess to activate stuff or to show us more truth or to come in cutting off heads with swords and all that stuff. Like that's not where I would go. That's not what I would suggest. Because it's happening. It's coming. Like it's coming. Black Moon is conjunct Pallas Athena, warrior goddess. That's full on. That's all happening. What I'm talking about is something to support the process, that pressure cooker, the internal change that's happening, the external stuff that's flying at us. intense transformations happening. And so it's really what can support us and feeling into some of the higher wisdom goddesses, like the higher vibrational wisdom feminine, Sophia, Hygeia, really, really, really potent, beautiful, nurturing, supportive energies to work with. Calling in the grace and asking, Sophia is really beautiful for this, asking, let me see the truth. Let me see, right? It's a wisdom goddess, right? Let me see, and with Mercury here, the mind's getting rewired. Let me see a higher truth. Let me think higher thoughts. That's huge. Hygeia, Kundalini, goddess of miraculous healing, very much body, right? Let higher wisdom energy move through my body if I'm having physical ailments. If I'm having a hard time sleeping, if I'm having stomach stuff going on, digestive stuff going on, all kinds of physical stuff can be happening because it's in Taurus. It's a full moon eclipse in Taurus, body, embodied. So working with these two is really a beautiful thing to do. If you've worked with them in the past or you know them, awesome. Invoke their Shakti and invoke that goddess energy, and in whatever ways that you work with them. If you don't know how to do that, that eclipse workshop, we work with both of them. Not even my plan. That eclipse workshop was created a couple days ago before I even saw the astrology for this particular eclipse coming up. But just another way of supporting self. How do I want to end this? A lot of compassion for self, a lot of love, a lot of self-care, a lot of nourishing, a lot of discernment. I saw this, I'll leave us with this one. I saw this thing from Gary Vee. I love Gary Vee, by the way. He's an entrepreneur, and he inspires a lot of the younger generation. I just love him. Very inspiring. But I saw this post come across my feed this morning, and it was no apostrophe Vember. November is a month of no's. And I was like, wow, that's really good for eclipse season. November is a month of no's. So being okay to say no to this, no to that, no, I'm not going out, no, I don't want to be around that many people, no, I can't do this right now, no, I actually need to just self-care for a while, no, and not feeling guilty for saying no. We're in deep rewiring, deep transformation process, and it's a time that we can really, really excavate some of our own hidden gifts, some of our own hidden potentials, and if we don't give ourselves that space, won't happen. We will get swept up in the current of fear, the current of craziness, the current of collective madness, and we will skip over the gifts that are right here. They're all right here. That door is wide open, and all of it wants to happen for you. But we have to be able to give ourselves the space and the practices and working consciously and intentionally in this energy. And so no's really help us to create that space. My God, I wish you so much, so many blessings and so much love and so much grace through this eclipse season. Again, if you want some support or you want to journey deeply or work consciously with this energy, or if you just want some good psychic hygiene self-care practices, that eclipse workshop is $27. It's 40% off until the 8th, and then it's going to go away. It's just a thing that I did for this eclipse season. So it's there, it's available. Would love to share that with you if that calls to you in any way. All right, so much love to you. Mwah.